Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine.
Welcome to the show, my man. How we doing tonight over there?
Brother, we're pretty good, man. I can't complain in Cincinnati right now. I could complain, but I choose not to.
Exactly. How is the weather in Cincinnati, by the way?
You know what, man? It's schizophrenic, right? And so you know, Charlie, how when you and I were growing up, we had 4 distinct seasons, right? We had a fall, we had a winter, we had a spring, we had a summer. It seems like anymore, and definitely here, we basically get 2 seasons. We get winter and we get summer, right? So it'll be 1 week, 40, 30 something degrees, and then 80 something the entire next week. And we're in the 80 something week right now.
Wow. Well, before we kick off, we're going to let people get on board. What's happening, Kim Dantzler? What's up, Valerie Kennedy? I haven't seen you all year. Brian, what's happening? Brian Foston, Simone. How you doing, Miss Lewis? I want to also shout out my sponsor for the night. We got Jay sponsor, which is from Gallo Wines, and I'm on the bubbly. So have to shout out to my boy Scott. He makes it happen for me. But tonight, everybody, as you guys come on board, I got a wonderful, y'all will not believe this story. The timing of this book that Mr. Ted Cummings have put down for us is remarkable. I mean, just the whole timing of this and what we're going through right now, what we're experiencing on the virus side of the house and what the science fiction is all about, the book is all about, to just what's happening in our culture today with within Black America. And I think the two meeting at this time in your book release is really, I mean, could you ask for a better timing on your book? You know? You think about it, come to think about
it? In one sense, yes, but in another sense, no. In terms of the kismet of my story with what's happening in reality, no. But in terms of, frankly, how the virus has just stopped, my efforts, right? I mean, it's been like, been in the house for 3 months. I need to go and talk about the book.
Right. Let's talk about the book. So while you're here, let's talk about the book. All right. Mr. Ted Cummings, everybody. You know he's an HU fella in the house. So HU.
To the day I die. To the day I die.
He's all for Alpha at HU, at the good old Beta chapter.
Yes, sir.
Interesting background. You were a mechanical engineering student at Howard. You went and got your JD. You've been you are a practicing trademark and patent attorney.
Correct.
So you doing and keeping that bills paid and everything like that. And then you decide to write a book. So the name of his book, everyone, is The Slumber. And we're gonna put it up for you guys to check it out. But it's a Black science fiction, and it's quite interesting to say the least. I haven't made it all the way through because it is quite thick and I haven't had that time, but my man Ted is going to take us through it and let us know what's going on. So, number 1, this is a sleeper book series. You say it's 1 of 5 books. What does that mean and how did that come about? How did you know it was going to be 1 of 5?
So it's definitely a series, and honestly, man, it's probably a 6-book series. Okay. And the reason I'm sort of netting out on that, Charlie, because as I am writing book 2, which is, the working title for book 2 is Awakening. As I'm writing book 2, there's so much story in book 2 that, I could easily write a 1,000-page book, easily. I didn't mean to write a 500-page book. I really didn't. But again, there's so much content and so much story there. It just sort of happened. So in order not to just overwhelm my readers, I'm looking hard at doing an Awakening Volume 1 and an Awakening Volume 2, which then puts me into the 6-book series realm.
Okay. So your book, The Slumber, everybody who just came on board, hey Cecil, what's up, Leslie? Hey Ben, Stephen, Leslie, Simone, everybody, Maxine. We have the book called The Slumber. This is book 1. It's a Black science fiction. It's a novel that takes place in a post-apocalyptic America. It's a dystopian tale in which
Dystopian. Yeah, dystopian. Yeah.
a mutated virus devastates America. That's why I'm saying, I mean, you can't even make this up, to be honest with you, as far as what's going on in the timing. Right. So basically, walk us through the book, writing this book. How did this all come about for you?
Great question, man. So I got the story 6 years ago. And I want to say that I was blessed with the story. And I got it in large part because at the time I was a teacher. I was teaching robotics and computer science to 7th graders in an inner city STEM school here in Cincinnati. And those kids, Charlie, taught me, man, they taught me so much, right? And it forced me to ask certain questions like, you know, as smart as these kids are, as willing to learn as they are, what would their lives look like as Black kids if they didn't have to deal with systemic racism? And what would their lives look like if the family issues that many of them came to school with didn't exist as a direct function of, again, systemic racism? Okay. And so as I began asking those questions, it led to a broader framework for me of, well, you know, I wonder what would life look like for Black people if, for example, slavery had been cut short after the Revolutionary War, which, as you know, was a possibility. It just didn't happen. Or what would life look like for us as a people if Jim Crow had never happened, right? That 90 some odd years of straight up terrorism against Black people in the South and in other places. And so as I was asking these existential questions, an idea began to form, right? And that idea surrounds the idea, the notion of doing away with avid systemic racism, right? And then as an engineer and as a techie kind of guy, I started to think about a plausible mechanism by which to make that happen. Right. My plausible mechanism is a mutated virus which impacts all of America, but which affects 2/3 of the population one way and 1/3 of the population another.
Right. Okay. All right. Now, which I find so amazing because, like I said, your timing is impeccable when it comes down to what we're going on right now with coronavirus, as well as what we just saw in Minnesota, what we're seeing in Central Park, of how everything's coming together. I love you going back into history and bringing this forward. So how do you see the relationship between science fiction and the culture today?
So here's what's very interesting about that. If you look at most science fiction, and at least the visual science fiction, as a people, we barely show up. Right? It's as if, Charlie, we didn't make it to the future, right? And of course that's not true. What my book does, man, my book frankly places Black, brown, and Asian people at the center of the story, in particular at the center of the American story, right? And what's interesting about book 2 from book 1, so book 1, Slumber, happens in modern times, basically happens now. Yeah. Book 2 is a wrap up of book 1, and then it shoots 80 years in the future. Okay. Right. So we get to see the development of this new society headed up by Black, brown, and Asian people, and how it turns out and what happens and the technological advances and so forth.
So it's our Wakanda.
So
is that what it is?
There will definitely be elements of that.
Okay.
Right? Absolutely, there will be elements of that because frankly, as a people, we value technology differently than Euro-Americans, right? We actually want to protect the environment. We want to get rid of, the gas combustion engines, and do electrical type, for cars and transports. And we will see in my series the different impact in terms of our values on the environment and on energy resources and that.
Okay. You know what I love about you is because your background is very unique, which writing this book. I mean, you're engineer, you're mechanical engineer, you taught robotics system, you're a lawyer by trade, and now you're going into this. Where does all this what inspires you to write something such as this?
Well, frankly, brother, this is a love letter to our people.
Okay.
Right. This is me looking at the best of who we are and projecting that forward both now and in the future.
Okay.
You know, in an ecosystem that says we have no boundaries and we have no barriers. Right. Today in May 2020, we're still having to deal with, you know, some racist, evil cop's knee on our neck killing us. Right. What I'm doing in my book, essentially, brother, is getting rid of the possibility of that. Right. So that we can fly high and be our best selves.
Okay. I mean, and, you know, we talk about this all the time. We talk about if we were not in a particular situation.
Right.
And, you know, and you talk about it from the standpoint of if slavery is stopped at the Civil War.
The end of the Revolutionary War.
Excuse me, the end of the Revolutionary War. If we did not have Jim Crow, who we would have been as people. I mean, we are innovators alone.
Right.
We've innovated based on the fact that we had to work the land. We had to come up with ways of how to, okay, you know what? I'm not going to pick this cotton. So let me see how we're going to pick these seeds out this cotton. I'm going to be creative and I'm going to talk, you know, I'm going to do that in a different way. Okay. You are writing a book about where we start and where we finish and in modern day times with this virus. When you think about this, are you thinking about this from a personal story that affected you along the course of your life that made you write this? Because how does one come about thinking about a historical point of view and where we are in modern day times based on your background, which is very interesting.
That's really interesting, man. I mean, the stuff that the story deals with and talks about technology, you know, major shifts in the social paradigm, major political shifts, geopolitical issues, like these are all this is all subject matter that is very interesting to me. Right. I'm an avid reader of political journals and newspapers and so forth. And I'm as I look at the state of our world, not just the country, man, but the state of the world in terms of how world leaders make these horrible choices and decisions. You know, if anything, man, it's me having or reacting to a desire to create an America in its best possible light. Right. Right now, we have an America that is at its worst, in my opinion. We have presidential leadership that is at its worst. Right. We have governmental leadership that's at its worst. And so, if anything, this is a reaction. This is me reacting to the state of our country today.
Okay. And when you think about that, and when you think about the book itself, take us through the book of how it starts out, and then basically where you leading up, because you start out in modern day times. You don't go back into history. You start out where we are today, dealing with what we're dealing with. So take the listeners through basically the story.
Sure. So a mutated virus is released in multiple areas around the country. It is an airborne virus. It's also potentially communicable definitely communicable by touch and also through water. It is reserved to the continental United States, so Alaska and Hawaii are not impacted.
Okay.
And what happens, man, is that if a person has a sufficient amount of melanin, right, or the ability to produce melanin on demand, the virus will not affect you. If you do not have the requisite amount of melanin or the inability to produce it, you will be negatively impacted by the virus.
Wow. I love that.
As it turns out, two-thirds of the population are negatively impacted by the virus. The remaining 1/3 are not. As it so happens, the remaining 1/3, Charlie, are people that look like you and me.
Okay. Sounds good. I like that. I like being on the dark side this time. So everybody, we have Ted Cummings. If you just joined us, the name of the book is The Slumber.
Slumber. It's Slumber.
Sorry. Slumber.
Slumber. Yep.
Slumber. I'm sorry. This is book one of a series of 5 books.
6 books.
It's a lot in here. This man is writing the story. He is a Howardite. We love our HU man. And he's a School of E. So, you know, brains mixed with politics, geopolitics.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think about where his story is going and what inspired this, this is the man who is going to bring. You know what? When I think about this book and when I think about what you're doing, we all want to know if Black people did not have to endure what we endured, where we would be, you know. And so so I think your logic and where you're going with that is to try to give people to think forward and not think backward and think about the prism that they're in. But you know what? Let's not deal with the negativity of today's world. Let's think about where we're going forward. And excuse the siren. It's New York.
That's all right. It is New York, brother.
It's on fire. But yeah, so where are we? That's what I love about it. It really has a positive outlook on making us think about us as a people, you know, and then also too, the beauty of us and the color of our skin, you know, alleviates us, and we don't have to go through and deal with this virus. You know, like a lot of people were trying to say the coronavirus was not going to affect us, but you see how that turned out. I digress. Right. But talk about that a little bit and where you got that inspiration.
So it's interesting, man. So the sleepers virus is the mirror image of the melanin molecule.
Okay.
Right. In fact, on my book cover is a stylized rendition of the melanin molecule. Okay. Right. So melanin really is the star of the show. And the idea is that when a sleepers virus attacks the body, right, if it meets melanin, if there's enough melanin to essentially find it, they'll act like a lock and key mechanism, which binds the sleepers virus and prevents it from injuring a host.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, when you started writing this, how long did it take you to write this first book?
Man, great question. So it took me 6 years, and which is a trip because it probably won't take me 6 months to write book 2. Okay. The reason it took 6 years, Charlie, is because I had to literally transform from, into a writer of fiction. Now, as you know, I'm a writer by profession. I write patent applications and all that kind of stuff, briefs and letters and all of that. But legal writing is not the same thing as fictional writing. Right. So over that 6-year period, I literally had to transform and become a writer of fiction. And also, man, I probably walked away from this, Charlie, at least half a dozen times. And my walkaways would be real long, extended walkaways, right? 3 months, 4 months, a year at one point, right? I mean, and brother, it was a Herculean effort to finish, get it done, get it published, and get it out. And the other piece for me is, you know, I have a very accomplished family, but you know, we don't have writers like that, bro. We even have people in the arts, but we don't have literary type folk. And so for me, man, there was just no precedent for that whatsoever. Right. And so, I often saw myself too small to the task, often. And I'm every time I sell a book, I'm surprised. I'm thankful. Right. Because, you know, this is really brand new, you know.
How did you because you know, rightfully so. I mean, you're switching from doing patent and trademark law, you know, every day, and then you got to switch over, and then you got to start, you know, get into that brain thing of writing this book. Where did you get your motivation from to continue to make sure that it came to completion?
Yeah, I'd say 2 places. Number one, God or the divine, however people want to define that. And I would say the characters themselves. There was a point at which the characters began to sort of talk to me and share their story with me in a way as if they were actual living people, right? Right. And so I became, at the end of the day, I became a conduit for their stories, right? And then frankly, man, as much as I tried to walk away from this, man, I kept getting what I call divine reminders, brother, to just get back to it, finish, do it, and get it done. You know,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's good too, man. And I would say, you know, and I include the ancestors in that too, man, because this is their story as well.
Okay. Do you think, as far as getting your information and the ideas and the characters around the book, are those individuals that are in your life?
Oh, great question. Great question. So several of the characters start from either people I know or from myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a character in the book named Donnie Hernandez, which is basically me in my 20s, right? At least he starts out that way, right? There's a character named there's a character named Jerome, you know, who's me in my 30s and 40s, right? Um, and you know, and in fact, all the characters there's only one character that is wholly unrelated to anybody that I personally know, and that's Raheem, right? But even with the characters that start from a blueprint, that every single one of them became their own person, every single one of them. And so
Mm-hmm.
at this point, they're talking to me, man, and I'm literally only telling their story at this point. They're like, "Hey Ted, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened," and I'm typing it up as fast as I can.
Right, right. What does your family think of your writing after reading it and coming through?
Yeah, I think they really like it. You know what I'm saying? But it's family. I tell you, man, because I'm new at this, and
Right.
because I'm new at this, I actually value honest criticism more than I do praise, right? Because at the end of the day, I Charlie, I really want to produce a story. I should say, produce a book or produce a writing that honors the story, right? And so what I've said about that, man, is like I know that the story is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that the story is fantastic, right? The story is only limited by the proficiency of the writer,
Mm,
right?
good point.
Right,
Okay.
right. And so, I mean, the only reason I even published, bruh, was because I felt like the writing was finally good enough
Mm-hmm.
not to unduly impede the story.
Okay. I like that. That's an interesting comment as far as saying the book could go only so, you could take it only so far based on your proficiency and where you want it to
Right.
go with it.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right.
but you have time to make up because you have 5 books in the works. So, I mean, as far as where you're going to take this book and take us on this trip, it's going to be a
Right.
journey. And
Right.
I love that aspect of that. So when you see it from that perspective, do you think there's a movie potential out of this based on that?
Oh, brother, I absolutely wrote this for visual media. This is a story that demands to be portrayed visually. Absolutely, right? And in fact, I mean, part of the multi-book aspect of this is, this is a multi-season Black science fiction story, multiple seasons. And so yeah, I think it can and it absolutely should be an offering on your Netflix, your Hulu, or your Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. What are you hearing from your readers right now? What are they saying about the book?
Um, I'm hearing so they're here are all the positives.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling me that the book definitely grabs their attention and keeps their attention.
Yeah.
They're telling me that the characters are very relatable. They're telling me which characters are their favorite. A lot of people love Raheem for some reason. I like him too.
Well,
A lot of people really like.
everybody loves a Raheem now. Come on now. You gotta love Raheem.
He's a bad boy too. He a bad brother. I look forward to what he does in book 2.
Okay.
And people have been a bit put off by the size of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise I did not mean to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been very happy with a 350 page offering. Very happy. It just turned out, and as much as I can going forward, I'll try to keep the books somewhere between 350 and 400, which is why I'm going to end up having to chop up book 2, because where I'm at right now, man, I mean, book 1 was 15 chapters with a prologue and an epilogue.
Right.
I can easily, Charlie, do 25, 26 chapters with a prologue and an epilogue for book 2. And I'm not going to kill people with a 1,000 page book, man. I'm just not going to do that.
Right. No, no, no. I hear that. And I love the fact that this is your first time writing and that you're
Yeah.
able to just, create and you have so much stored up. So are you planning on, I guess, um, quitting your day job and moving full-fledged into being an author? Is that the plan? Is that what's on deck?
Well, you know what? It's in the Lord's hands, brother. I would very much, I very much have a passion for writing. And I would say what I really have a passion for is for production, right? I would love to spin this into producing Black science fiction work, not just my work, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the work of others. You know, one of the most underserved genres in the country is Black science fiction.
I was just
And
Yeah. I was just
right,
about to ask
right.
you that. Was anybody motivating you to write science fiction?
Well, not directly, right?
Okay.
I am very motivated by Tyler Perry in terms of the model that he uses to take the genre that he enjoys and it makes sense to him and work the hell out of it, right? I would love to do the exact same thing specifically for Black sci-fi.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah.
I love that analogy, between, because Tyler Perry will tell you in a minute, look, I got a lane and I stay in that lane,
Right.
And
That's
that's
right.
it. Point blank period. You can love me, or leave me alone, per se.
Right.
And in the same thing, in the same genre of you coming up with being a Black science fiction writer, it's not many. Do you have any people that you look up to that have written books before, that you kind of model yourself after, or what?
Yeah, I do, man. Believe it or not, man, I have a lot of love, man, for J.K. Rowling and her Harry Potter series, right? And if you look at it's just a great writer, man, and I don't think she knew what she had when she started. I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back and you read her first two books, those books are clearly written to children. I mean, that is those are kid books, right? But as her audience grows up, her writing also grows up and matures. So when you get to Deathly Hallows, when you get to the last two books, it's her writing is very mature, and it speaks to the kids who started with her years ago, to the adults that they've become, right? And and so from an example perspective, I would love to produce a series, like the one that she has produced, because her series is absolutely literature. It's that is literature. And I tell anybody, white, Black, whatever, read the entire Harry Potter series, because it is moved culture, right? And there are so many references to that series and to that work that, especially for people who come after us, Charlie, who are much younger than us, like they need to have that as part of their toolkit, because otherwise, in certain aspects, when certain things are said, when they learn certain things in school that have been heavily influenced by that, it won't make sense to them. They won't have the context for that, right? Man, I would love to write a series that, at a minimum, moves our culture like J.K. Rowling's series moved culture.
Well, I think you're onto something. And just one question for you. Is the book available in audio version? Do you have it on Audible?
Brother, I'm working on that right now. The answer is no. Short answer is no. The long answer is I hope to have that up and ready to go in the next 2 weeks.
Okay. That is
my goal.
Have you created, during this COVID time, based on the fact that you can't get out and tour, have you created a Bison book club or book reading for your book?
You know what? Sort of. It hasn't been Bison. I've been doing some live readings on my Sleepers Books Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that a few times, but I've not specifically connected to Bison like that. And I could talk to you a little bit offline about why that is.
Well,
it's not a negative. I'm just gonna say it's not a negative, but it's I mean, I don't want to sort of be the guy that's only coming in to sell something. I want to be I mean,
I don't
these things work best out of relationship.
got you. But this is the thing. You are home. Bisons are home. We created
Right.
out of this COVID thing. We created the Bison Peloton crew, so we getting fit.
Right.
So
Right.
bottom line is
Right.
we're gonna make sure that we get on the reading list of different clubs that we can have you out there. So this is the beginning to put you out there.
Let's do it.
To understand.
Let's do it.
And have the kids to understand what's going on out there. So everybody,
and you know what too?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I give a 15% discount
Mm-hmm.
for all book clubs. 15% off.
Okay, sounds good. So a couple of questions out here. Let's see. We talked about the Audible version. The Connecticut Club said they want to do a Bison book club to make it happen.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yay, Connecticut. Love you guys.
Okay. Tracy said, I may have missed it. How does Ted bring the voice of our culture experience in his sci-fi writing? Is that something he is intentional about?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, this book is for us, by us, right? And it is voiced and written 100%, from an authentic, Black perspective, right? And so, and especially for the people, I just went over to the live comments, and there are some people on here who I know personally, especially for those folks, who know me, like they will hear me in the writing, right? If you know me at all, be like, oh yeah, that's Ted speaking. Yeah, that's definitely Ted. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I love that. Well, for those who just came on, Slumber, Ted Cummings, author, first-time writer. One of 5 series. I'm going to, if you guys got any questions. Brian said Charlotte Club is also interested in book club reading. See, you already got
B.
But look,
let me tell you something. B might be my favorite new.
Look, when you cannot go on the road, you got to go virtual. So this is it. Bottom line is, you were coming to New York. We're gonna do you big. This is the show right now. So you got to let everybody know. There are a lot of African Americans out there reading different books. They want to know what's going on. They want to know. They want to see the world from different prisms. We're tired of just the same old thing. And this is a different voice. I mean, your book reads well. And as a first-time writer, I think you did a phenomenal job from the point of where I've gotten to. And I'm very honest about, I don't tell everybody I read your book. I couldn't read that book. That was too much, by the time I got it. But the bottom is I'm like intrigued. And so it is really exciting to see what you're doing. Stephanie Kinder also said, my line has a book club. So the AKAs are looking at you. I make sure.
Let me tell you something. Them Howard AKAs, brother. Them Howard AKAs. I can't say enough good about them.
There you go.
Howard Deltas too.
Them Reds gonna be mad at you. Okay, that's what I said.
I love them Reds. They know I love them.
All right.
I love them.
So we're gonna conclude here. Give me a couple of things. So, what's your number one takeaway that you want the readers from the book to learn, to know about the book?
Wow, great question. The number one takeaway, man, is that we really can do this, right? We really can create something beyond other people's expectations and beyond our own. And almost, man, I almost provide a roadmap about how to get there, honestly. But the other thing is, I want people to sort of imagine this thing the way I imagine it. Like, what could we accomplish but for these barriers, right? We, as a people, we do great in spite of the barriers, right? But what might it look like if we had the opportunity to have them removed? Right.
Okay, all right. Any questions you guys have out there? I'm gonna keep Ted. I got one more thing for you. When it comes down to getting your information, like I was saying, your characters and everything like that, and you going into, you said you're going back into, you're going into the future for your second book, correct? 80 years.
Yes, sir.
80 years ahead.
80 years in the future. So, yes, sir.
What do we Black and brown people look like in 80 years? What's happening?
We look like our best, man. we look like our best. And that's 80 years of prosperity. That's 80 years of learning. That's 80 years of us not having to deal with systemic racism. That's 80 years of multi-generations of us, 3 or 4 generations of us that have never experienced racism the way that we experience it now. That's 80 years of us becoming our absolute best.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. One question from the audience. We got our brother John Dunson down there. What's up, John? He said, talk to us about your writing process. That's exactly.
I'm absolutely not answering. I'm not answering any questions from Dunson whatsoever. Next speaker.
I love it. I love it.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
No, right? That's my dude.
Another Howard Newt. We got to pray for him. God bless him. So from a writing process, my writing process now is for book 2 is different than it was for book 1, right?
Right.
Book one, I had to get the skills. Book 1, I didn't have any confidence. Book 1, I felt small to the task, right? Book 2, man, I'm blazing through this bad boy, right? I'm at the end of writing chapter 5, and the schedule that I had set for myself was, well, I'll write a chapter per week, right?
Right.
And at this point, Charlie, I'm banging out 2-3 chapters a week, right? Which gives me the confidence to say I'll at least have volume 1 ready for pre-order and sale, in the fall, and publishing and distribution in by Christmas, right?
Okay.
And and it's interesting, man. I don't get writer's block. The story is extremely rich. I literally just have to sort of get into a quiet place and listen to what the characters are telling me, right? And then properly sort of portray and write down, what's there. Like I'm having a ball writing chapter 5 right now. Chapter 5 of book 2 is just fire. It's fire. Like probably my favorite character is doing her thing, and it's just, man, it's awesome.
Well, you know what I love about you, because the passion that you are exuding through telling the story about your characters are so rich in the sense that it seems as though you've been sitting on your calling for quite some time, because nowhere that I know a writer who would say, you've been a practicing attorney. And of course, we do certain things in order to survive for our families, make a living, live a life that we think that we were supposed to live. And then all of a sudden, we have that wake up call and say, hey, you know what? This is what I'm supposed to do. This is the story that I'm supposed to tell. This is my way that I'm getting back to the culture in order to move the culture along. Have you thought about it from that perspective? Have you thought about, this is you loving the way you live, which is my motto, and doing the things that you love to do?
Yeah, brother. I didn't used to think on that level before, but I think about that now, right? Like I really want to move the culture with this story, right? I really want to provide a perspective in Black sci-fi and in story that doesn't currently exist. There is no story like this out there for Black people right now. It doesn't exist.
Right.
And I think about that now, and I feel the responsibility of that. Now, I would love, frankly, for my stewardship of the story to become my full-time profession. I would love that. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna honor the stewardship of the story, and we'll see what happens, man.
Okay. One other question from Kenya. She said, what does it feel like to give voice to those who feel voiceless?
It feels hella empowering. It feels very, 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 very empowering. And it feels like me sharing love to our people. That's what it feels like to me.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you guys to Mr. Ted Cummings, first-time author of the book Slumber. It's a series of a sleeper series book of 1 of 5. He is starting his second book. I think you will. I don't think. I know that you will see him on the big screen some kind of way. We'll get it out there for you.
I believe you. I agree with you.
Hey, I'm with you, baby. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for giving a voice to those who are, especially during this time when I think we need an escapism, because we need to see empowering stories about us, who we are as people, who we are as individuals, and to escape this world that through the eyes of the privilege don't see the best in who we are. And that's not for you to define, it's for us to define. And with that being said, I'm going to say good night. All right? Anything you want to say? I
appreciate you, Charlie. You know what? There was a really good question from Tracy about how mainstream publishing has been responsive to my book.
Yeah.
And what I would say to Tracy is that I self-published because I didn't want to wait for mainstream publishing. I know that this story is potentially very triggering to the people who run those kind of houses. And so I strategically have made the choice not to wait on them.
Right. And also too, you don't want your story told from their prism. You want it told to
at all from mine. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, Mr. Cummings, I appreciate you coming on to the show. We're going to definitely get those virtual book tours, clubs set up for you. We're going to put all of Ted's information out there for you guys to be able to get the book, for you to start your book clubs during this COVID times. And what's the best time to do it now? Then, since you can't go on the road, we're going to bring the book to you. All right.
I appreciate that. And I can't wait to come see you, bro. I can't wait.
We got it. All right, baby. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'll talk to you.
Let the sun shine. Let the sun shine.